Welcome to Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, the podcast that deals with all things mental health. We talk to professionals, survivors, and loved ones about their sometimes informative, sometimes uplifting, and sometimes tragic stories. I'm your host of the show, Todd Rennebaum, advocate, recovering addict, experienced sufferer of depression and anxiety, and author of the children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. I am Todd Rennebaum, and I hope you all had a very nice week. I hope you weren't itching with too much anticipation for the next episode. And if you were, well, good news. It's been released. You're listening to it now. Anyway, I'd just like to thank everybody that has either shared or made nice comments to me on Facebook or on Instagram. On Instagram, my handle is Daddy Cries Book. It's a long story why I don't have my own for the podcast, but doesn't matter. And Bunny Hugs and Mental Health on Facebook. I'd especially like to give a thank you to YXE Social Justice on Instagram for sharing and saying some nice things, along with Kyle McClintock, Lori Donaldson, and Jacqueline Rennebaum. Thank you so much for all the very nice comments and all the suggestions and all the wonderful nice things people are doing. I'd also like to give a quick thank you to the latest sponsor of the show, Penny University Bookstore. They are located at 3104 13th Avenue. You can go in there and talk to the lovely Annabelle and her staff. Their phone number is 639-571-2186. And if you don't like talking to people and going to places, you can go to the bookstore online, pennyu.ca, and you can shop and buy all the wonderful books you want online there. This episode, I speak to a good friend of mine. I've known him for at least 25 years, maybe a little longer, and his name is Dan Scheuerpflug, or something like that. He's got one of those names that I can never pronounce right. So anyway, he is an Army veteran. Army? Yeah, I think, or maybe Air Force. You know, it doesn't matter. He's a veteran. He was in Afghanistan. He's working through some PTSD. He had some anxiety when he was younger as well. And he's going to talk about his story and how all that affected his personal life. What he's doing now, what treatment looks like for PTSD, and kind of how it affects him. And so, yeah, we've got another great guest and another great story. So, without further ado, I give you Dan.
I'm doing good. I mean, all things considering, what's going on all over the place, you know, I'm doing good. Like I could see how a lot of people can go down that dark, scary hole, especially like, you know, when you can't go and see like your support system or have your support system over or anything like that, right? So, I mean, like I said, all things considered, I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm okay. This year's been tougher than the last few, I guess, but you know, I used to go to AA meetings, but those all shut down. I haven't been to an AA meeting in a year, and there's just been weird stuff at work with fires and being laid off and stuff. So it's been a bit of a struggle. I don't know. I've had more panic attacks this last year than I have the previous 3, but also a lot of great stuff's happened this year. So I just take it as it comes, I guess. Yeah.
Well, and that's all you can do, right? Like if you don't kind of keep pushing forward, and then some of that good stuff just doesn't pan out or whatever, right? So good on you for doing like this and your book and everything, right? Like,
oh, thanks, man.
It's good. It was very pleasant to see something like, especially your book coming out that hasn't been done before, and it's a real thing, right? So I know, like, when I came back from overseas, like, the boys were 5 turning 6. You know, I'm going through my stuff. Well, what do you tell a 5 and 6-year-old, or, you know, 5 turning 6, right? So yeah, I mean, like, that's super awesome that you have that out there, where, you know, other parents can kind of take that as a guidebook type thing and be able to, you know, sit down with their kids. That's super awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it's been interesting. Too bad I can't go out and promote it because there's a pandemic, but other than online, but
Yeah.
it's been good. But you're not interviewing me. We're talking about you. So,
Yes.
Dan, let's start from the beginning. When you were young, I know that you
Okay.
had you were in the hospital a few times and you had some issues with mental health back then even.
Yeah, that was a lot of anxiety with regards to more or less like family dynamic, and just basically working with my stepdad. It was it was interesting because, you know, he came in to the picture. He hadn't been married. He hadn't had any kids of his own, so he's like brand new to the whole situation. So trying to I guess take on that, plus, you know, his everyday life. You know, things got a little heated, and, you know, and there was a couple of times where I just kind of said, "Hey, I need a break," and that's what I went and did. And, you know, I'm glad I was able to do that. And just kind of, you know, refocus on the better things as opposed to the bad things, right? And I'm not saying by any means, like, was my childhood horrible or anything, but it was a different situation for all of us. So I mean, once we got all through that, and things turned around, and we just went on living our little happy lives, making sausage and selling beef jerky.
I was going to mention the beef jerky.
Yes. Yeah, the jerky I miss so much. And at the time, because working at my dad's store, I just got sick of it, and everybody would be like, "Dan, you know, get us some beef jerky." I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't look at it anymore." But now that it's not here,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh my God, I want that beef jerky so bad."
Do you mind me telling your dad's shop name?
Oh yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was Oscar's Meats in Regina. That's Dan's stepdad.
Yeah, he had that. He had that for 35 years, I believe, and he actually retired the year after I got out of, the year that I released from the military. So that would have been 2015.
So when you were younger, you weren't actually diagnosed with anything. It was mostly anxiety, and just from, well, you're a sensitive guy, you got anxiety, so it was life situations. It was
Yeah.
Okay. And something I learned from you, from one of your stays in the hospital, is don't ever date anyone you meet in the psych ward.
Oh yeah, that was, you know what? At the time, it seemed like a good idea.
Of course,
It really did.
Yeah.
You know, you're two people in the same spot, and, you know, what better way to kind of, I guess, help each other, and I don't know,
Support each other. Yeah.
you know, at the time, like I said, it seemed like a good idea, but You know, unfortunately, it wasn't. And, I mean, we obviously went our separate ways after, I don't even think it was very long. I think it was probably about a month. And I pretty much said that, yeah, I can't do this anymore. So,
Well, hey, man, in treatment center where I work and where I went to, man, I don't know how many relationships start in that place, and they never end up good. It's like, no, you're here to get help for yourself. Don't try to save everyone around you and start dating people, because yeah, it never ends well.
yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
I had to throw that
But
in
yeah, I know. Well, and you know, I kind of, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if he's going to bring that up, because, and I'm not even sure why I even thought of it, but I'm glad you did, because it's one of those chapters or whatever that, you know, you shouldn't really forget about the past. You should just kind of, you know, anything that you feel that was a mistake, or even if it was a victory, you still need to chalk that up as a life experience, right? So
there. Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, God, that was probably 20 years ago. We're old, man.
Oh, I know I'm old. You know, sometimes I get out of bed and I feel like I'm 19 again, but then there's other days I get out of bed and I feel like I'm 80, and yeah, it's yeah, and you and I, we've known each other for, well, since high school, so that's got to be
25 years.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, so I know I got a couple of years on you, but yeah, it's you know, time flies, especially when time flies when life gets in the way, right? Like it's but it's good though, right? Because you know, you gain those life experiences, and that, you know, some of them you wish you could take back, some of them you wish could keep going, but I mean, it is what it is. But yeah,
I mean, it made me the person I am today.
yeah. And you know, I was gonna bring this up a little bit later on, but I'm gonna bring it up now.
All right.
So I'm not sure how much of your background, like, that you've shared, but I bet some people need to know that you are a phenomenal drummer. Phenomenal. I mean, like,
Not anymore. I just tried the other day, and I was like, oh my God.
Are you still using that 5-gallon pail to sit on too, or do you actually have a stool?
No, it's still the pail, the same one.
The same one yet? Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's not about me.
I know it's not about. Yeah, I just had to throw that in there. So go ahead.
Okay. So, you're in your younger 20s. You've gone to the hospital a couple times. You've had some experience with doing that, going to the hospital, having some anxiety. You join the military, and you go overseas to Afghanistan. Take it away.
Yes. All right. So I actually was sworn in September 6th, 2001.
Damn.
And on September 11th, I was actually running around getting all the stuff that I needed to get done before I went to basic training. And at that point, I think I maybe listened to the radio in my car like maybe 3 times. The rest of the times, like, all mixtapes or CDs or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get to my dad's store, and he's like, "You're going to war." I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm going to basic. There's no war going on. And he's like, nope, they blew up the World Trade Center. What? So now I turn on the radio. I'm driving home, and I sat there and I watched with my mom, like pretty much for the rest of the day, rest of the night. And all of a sudden it clued in, like, well, if they're shutting down airports, how am I supposed to get the basic? Because I'm supposed to be going to Gagetown, New Brunswick. So I get on the phone with the recruiting office, and they said, worst case scenario, we'll put you on a bus. I'm like, okay, great. Go across like 5 provinces in a bus. That sounds super fun. But anyways, I get there, basic training, and I finished that up. I went on to my trades course in Borden, Ontario. Then I got posted to CFB Shiloh, just outside Brandon, Manitoba. And I always had my name on the list to deploy overseas. It took a few years. It was 2008 when I actually deployed. And that was just because, there's at that point in time, there were so many people that have joined that want to go and and fight the good fight and serve their country type thing. And so I had to wait a little bit, but yeah, I get there, and I mean, it's a total culture shock with regards to, you're used to driving down Albert Street and seeing buildings that are in one piece and stoplights, and you go there, you're driving down the street in Kandahar, and there's dilapidated buildings and camels instead of cars, and there's no streetlights. I think I maybe saw a stop sign or a partial stop sign. So yeah, it was a very, very big culture shock. And so the way it worked there was like there was the main airfield, so Kandahar Airfield, and that housed all of the militaries that were part of the mission. So you had everybody from Canada to Britain, US, Australia, Denmark, there was thousands and thousands of people. It was like a mini city. They had green beans, coffee, they had Tim Hortons, they had a Burger King. I mean, like, if you're hanging out at the airfield, like, it's no different than being in, like, Indian Head. Like, it had everything you needed, right? So for the most part, I was actually outside of the air base at a forward operating base. So I was outside the wire, and where I was considered the wild, wild west. It was the Panjwai district. A lot of bad, scary stuff went on there almost daily, and it could be a mortar attack at 3:00 in the morning, or a rocket attack at supper time. We had like a tally of everything that would come in on a daily basis, and I think in 1 week we had 10 or 12 mortar attacks, and the same, if not more, of rocket attacks. So I mean, it was very different to try to kind of put in your mind that, this is your new normal for the next 6 months or 7 months or whatever. But the scary thing is, like, a person gets used to it, right? So we had tanks that were parked up on the high points of this base, and it got to the point when the tank would fire around, and they make a lot of noise, that I would sleep through it. I wouldn't even turn over. Everybody else would be like, "Oh my God, something's happening, the tank fired." And I'd wake up the next day and be like, "You didn't hear what was going on last night?" And I'm like, "No, what happened?" So, I mean, I guess I got a little bit too used to my surroundings, but yeah, it was very, very different. And even with we had local workers that would come to the base like every day, and they would, like wash pots or they would do odd jobs, whatever, because there's basically no other job in the area for them to do, because the Taliban either ran it or even like the schools. Like we had a few school age kids that would come wash pots because the Taliban blew up their school or whatever, right? So I mean, you start getting all this coming at you, and you're like, okay, well, I'm here, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to, try to help in any way possible. And yeah, it was a bit of a ride, that's for sure.
So when those rocket and mortar attacks happen, like, how long do they last for?
I mean, these Taliban, they're pretty smart. So they could actually set up a mortar pointed at our camp. They could set it up about 5 or 6 hours before it actually goes off. And what they would do is they would put a hunk of ice down the mortar tube, and then they would put the round down, and then it would just sit there in the sun, and it would melt that ice. And as soon as that ice melted, that's when the mortar would fire. So they would do this at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, in the dark, where maybe we in a spot where guys aren't really paying too much attention to, and then all of a sudden midday heat starts, hitting this mortar, but there's nobody there, right? So, yeah, like they were.
So it's just random. Just keep you on your toes.
Keep
them in your head.
Yeah, exactly. And I've told somebody this once. It was like their version of psychological warfare, because like you don't know what's gonna happen. I had a lot of times, just walking out, going to the to our area, and we got to go back into the bunker because we just just turn around and go back into the bunker until it's all safe, and then you just don't know.
Yeah. I remember when you came back and you didn't actually tell me a lot of stuff. You told me some stuff, but you were like, it was still pretty fresh and painful, I guess. And it was like, so this, like, I've never heard a lot of this stuff. I remember you telling me how you got a lot of anxiety when you came back because of certain vehicles.
Yeah. And you know what? That is still to this day. Not as bad, but still to this day, white Toyota Corollas are like triggers for me. And the reason for that is when I was overseas, and like before you go on a road move, so like before you get into like the armored vehicles and go for wherever you're going, we would have a briefing before, and at the end of each briefing, they would say, okay, well, everybody needs to watch out for this white Toyota Corolla. It's got flowers hanging from the rearview mirror, or this white Toyota Corolla that has a huge dent in the trunk. But they were all white Toyota Corollas. So when I got home, that was just something that's stayed in my mind. And like I would get to a stoplight, and one would pull up, and I just all of a sudden clammy hands. I'd start sweating, and I'd just be waiting for that light to turn, so I could just like gun it and get the hell away from this car.
Mm-hmm.
But now, I mean, I still get a little. It's not to the same extent, like, but I still get a little antsy. It's easier now when like I drive a truck, so I mean like my truck's bigger than their car, so that makes me feel a little bit safer. But
need a Hummer.
I mean, well, not quite, but it's a big enough truck that makes me feel like I'm a little bit higher and got a little bit more to me than their car. So, but yeah, I mean, that was the thing, and I was for a long time I was just not wanting to drive anywhere, even though I wasn't a driver, or I didn't drive while I was overseas. It was just being in that situation, knowing that this was going on, and it just stuck to me, unfortunately. I mean, like, I feel, you know, I'm going to take the good out of this, and I feel I'm a little bit better of a driver now, knowing or having that issue. So, I mean, I guess that's a good thing, because I was a horrible driver before, but
you have to go to Afghanistan to learn how to drive.
Exactly.
Yeah. If that's all the stories you want to tell about Afghanistan, that's fine. I don't know if you have other triggering ones or more graphic ones or whatever, but really want to, I don't want to just talk about that stuff. I want to talk about PTSD and what that looks like and what that feels like in your everyday. Like, I've never experienced it as far as I know. So is it like a depression, or is it anxiety? Is it a mix of both? Is it a whole other thing?
Oh, it's a basket full of fun stuff, buddy. I mean, so for myself, I've been diagnosed with PTSD and a nightmare disorder. So with the nightmare disorder, I basically I have the exact same nightmare every night. It affects me differently every night, but every night, like clockwork, I have the exact same nightmare. There's days where, I mean, I could go 3 or 4 days and maybe getting, I don't know, 2-3 hours of sleep a night, just because when I do have this nightmare, I'm like up. I'm up, I'm awake. So a lot of times, you know, instead of just staying in bed, lying awake, or even just putting the TV on in the room, like I don't want to wake up Jackie, so I just go to the couch, and if I doze off later on, I doze off. So that's part of it. And the PTSD part of it is I am not a huge fan of going, like, perfect example, Christmas shopping.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that I can order stuff online just because, well, I guess not so much this past year because nobody could really go out and do a whole bunch of Christmas shopping. But I mean, like, years before, like going to a mall that's like packed full of people. No, I don't like that. I get very on edge. I'm very watchful. I start getting like the cold sweats and clammy hands, and it's
Is there like
basically
paranoia in that too?
Yep, there's a little bit of paranoia in that too, especially going into a mall because you don't know. Like, sure, you may know the mall in general, but you don't know the people in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where some of the paranoia would come in. I'd be constantly looking around and just trying to get what I need done as fast as I can so I can get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
I do find it easier. Now, this might sound crazy to some people, but Vegas is my favorite place to go ever on a trip. I love going to Vegas. I love seeing the lights and all this stuff. But when you go to Vegas, there's like 10 million people walking around. For some reason, if I'm with a group of people that I trust already, it's not so bad. I can get through it. But when I go to Walmart week of Christmas to go get that last minute thing, yeah, it's not going to happen. I'm just going to order it online and hope it gets there in time.
Yeah, right. So when you came back, you were married with kids, right?
Yes, I was married. I've got twin boys who are now 17. So when I came back, they were 5. Actually, they just started kindergarten probably a week or so before I got back.
So
And
sorry.
Go ahead.
How did this affect your home life and your personal life and that?
Yeah, it didn't do it any justice, that's for sure. I mean,
Right.
in the beginning, like, I probably stayed in bed maybe one day out of the week. And then there was the I guess the lack of support from my spouse at the time. And and thinking back, like, I don't really blame her per se for that lack of support. I guess I just blame the lack of education at that time.
Right.
That was out, right? And and it got to the point where things just would work out better if we weren't together. And we just kind of decided on that. We had a separation, and we split the time with the boys and all that stuff. And like, the good thing, I guess, I came from that was that we were still able to have a amicable relationship for the sake of the boys.
Right.
At the end of the day, as long as the boys were happy, fed, had clothes, everything, all the boxes were checked, we were both in a good place. and and being able to talk normally without, getting into fights and stuff like that, surely helped the situation as well. So, I mean, it's one of those things that, it is what it is, but it's one of those chapters that I look back on, and I always like to ask myself, what if I were to do this, or what if I were to do that? But I mean, at the end of the day, it did cause a lot of the reason behind the breakup. So, but I just kind of pushed on. And
so did the divorce and the split up kind of affect your mental health even more so now? Like, so now you have PTSD, and did you kind of have a broken heart, or you felt degraded at all, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was tough in the beginning, especially because at that time I was also transitioning my way out of the military. So now a job that I loved dearly, I couldn't do anymore. And then I had my divorce. So there was a lot of times where Dan felt sorry for himself, and I would be an active member of society when I had the boys, because you have to. You can't just sit there and not do stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
With them when they come see you, because they're excited to see you. They want to go outside and play hockey or whatever, right? So
yeah,
during that time, I would say that would be my saving grace time. But when I didn't have the boys, and I didn't have to be that active member of society, there'd be days where I'd wake up at noon. I'd be like, well, I don't have anything going on today. I'm just going to go back to bed because I got nothing. So I just sleep and not really care type thing about if I went and got together with friends or anything like that. I was happy to stay home. I was even happier staying home in my bed watching Netflix or whatever, right? So it was tough. And like looking back now, I mean, I wish I could go back and kick myself in the ass when all this was going on. But yeah, like, once again, it's a life lesson, right? So you
had anxiety just working with your stepdad. Like, it's understandable that you go to a whole other country and whole other culture, and you're being bombed weekly, and then to come home and to feel this way. So I wouldn't feel don't feel too bad that you took some time for yourself to
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like, it's but on the other hand, it just, I guess it just kind of made things harder, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I do. But
yeah, so, but that was tough, but like, at the end of the day, we all agreed it was for the best. And I mean, I feel I'm a better person for it, and I'm a million times better now than I was back then. And like I was never one for. I'm trying to think of a way to put this. I was never one for not turning down an invitation to go out for drinks and whatnot. I've never. You've known me for years, Todd.
Yeah.
You know that.
You're a very social guy.
Yeah, if you said, "Hey, Tyson and whoever else wants to go for beers," I'm the first one there.
Yeah.
But I did notice at that time in my life that, maybe I overindulged a little more than I probably should have. By no means did I didn't. It didn't turn like problematic or anything like that, but I do remember, especially the first month or two, that a couple of my buddies, they're like, "Okay, well, we got to get you out so you can forget about this." And I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you drink; it's still going to be there in the morning, right? So, but like I didn't feel the need to have to do it. I guess I just wanted to. And now I still like to have my cocktails once in a while, but I mean, comparing from then until now, I mean, I'm lucky and I shouldn't say I'm lucky, but I mean, if once a month I have more than 3 beers or whatever, it's a party, right? So, I mean, like, things change and people change, and, you get older and those hangovers are even worse when you're older. So it's probably for the better. But yeah.
Okay, so now you've gone to overseas, you've come home, your personal life's kind of, a bit of a mess. You divorce, you're drinking a little more, you're sleeping in bed a lot. At what point did you kind of start seeking help or getting any kind of treatment or anything?
I woke up one day and I just decided that I can't do this anymore for myself. Because as much as it sounds good to be in bed all day, it isn't. I mean, like you just get sucked into that black hole even more, right? That's and that's what it wants. It just wants you to feel more defeated, right?
Yeah.
So I just woke up one morning and I made an appointment with my doctor. I said, "What pills do I absolutely need and which ones don't I need?" And she's like, "Well, I don't think you need these ones." So I took those out of my life and I was able to get up at a decent time and not feel like I needed to go back to bed. A lot of the stuff I was on, I was very, very groggy when I got up, right? So I just would be like, "Oh, well, I'm still tired, so I'm going to go back to bed." And, "Oh, it's 5:00 in the afternoon now. There goes my day." So I took all that stuff out. I started to kind of get back into some physical activity. I got playing hockey again. I just all in all, I made a change for the better, just because I didn't like who I saw in the mirror.
Right.
And
so you kind of took it upon yourself to be proactive and kick yourself in the butt a bit.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm happy I did it. I wish I would have done it sooner, but maybe I wasn't ready sooner.
Right.
Maybe I needed that time or whatever, that span to kind of feel as crappy as I can, and then I just, like I said, I woke up one morning, I said, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I was doing CrossFit, which, I mean, sucks, but I mean, it helped. It helped with a lot of the pent up stress or stuff I was mad at, and it helped get that out. And even changing my diet at the time, like the only time I would cook a meal is when the boys were there to see me for the week or for the weekend or whatever. And besides that, I was just eating like absolute garbage. I mean, and it wasn't like I didn't have food in the fridge. I always had food in my fridge, but it was just like, it's easier just to go get a tub of ice cream and a McCain's cake, because I love both, and and eat that for supper, as opposed to, well, if I make this, I'm gonna have leftovers for like a week, and yeah, it just seems like way too much. So I'm just gonna go get this McCain's cake and eat it all myself and not care. So yeah, there was some diet changes there too, and
did the military help at all?
Yeah, like I was at that point, I had been out of the military for about a year, and because of I was medically released because of like my PTSD and whatnot. Veterans Affairs covers any medical bills, any psychiatry or psychologist sessions and stuff like that. So I was able to find some good people to go talk to, and kind of get back on track to being the person that I can be, as opposed to being a person that I didn't want to be. So yeah, that and still to this day, like clockwork, every 2 weeks, I sit down with my psychologist, and sometimes I've got a lot going on, and sometimes I don't, right? So,
Right.
but it's just nice to be able to sit there and have that hour conversation with somebody, just to kind of be like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And just have somebody, listen and affirm what's that, I'm doing, or I'm going down the right path, right? I'm not in like some sort of self-destructive mode or whatever. Yeah. And that, everything's going to be okay as long as I keep doing what I'm doing. So, I mean, that's been a little bit harder because of COVID, because, I usually go into the office to see the psychologist, but of course now we can't. So now it's through Zoom, and I mean, it's still good, but it's different because I like that time being able to leave the house to go to her office
Right.
and just be away from stuff, right? So
It's a new environment and
yeah, exactly. And but I mean, like, what are you gonna do? You can't not do it because you can't go to the office. You still need that. You still need that headspace and mind check every couple of weeks to, you know, make sure you're still on that path to your happiness or parts thereof, right? So
I see on Facebook that you got yourself a horse too, so you got some animal therapy.
yes, this is one thing that I really, really, really wish I had thought of sooner, but I'm not really sure why I didn't think of it sooner. Years ago, I was very involved with showing horses and stuff with my aunt, and I was also very involved in team roping and just being around that whole environment, lifestyle. Like I was always happy, especially like even on your worst day, a horse is gonna take you with a grain of salt, and you're just gonna end up a happier person after being with that horse. Even if you don't even ride the horse, if you just stand there and talk to the horse and pet the horse, all that good energy that they have, they pass on to you. And I mean, I started volunteering out at this ranch just outside Steinbeck, Manitoba, a few months ago. Cloud9 Ranch. They do adaptive riding, and they do therapy sessions with people. And so I just Googled them, and I set up an appointment to go out there, and I said, hey, look, this is my story, this is my experience. I just want to come out here and hang out and help out as much as I can. And she's like, well, normally we just don't let anybody here, but you've proven that you know what you're talking about. So yeah, you can come out whenever you want. So since then, I've been going out there, and then one of the things that I really wanted to get back into was the team roping, and so I was kind of humming and hawing, and it's one of those things where, yeah, you could probably find somebody that you could borrow a horse from, but it's like borrowing your friend's truck. Like
Yeah.
they always say, oh yeah, you
Or
can borrow
wife.
my truck to move. But your friends always say, oh yeah, you can borrow my truck, to go move stuff or take stuff to the dump. But at the end of the day, you really don't want to borrow that truck, right? So that was my theory when I approached Jackie with the idea of getting a horse. And so Jackie, she grew up in Winnipeg and lived in the city her whole life. So she's very, very new to all of this horse stuff. And so she had like a whole bunch of questions, which is great because I would think that if your partner's gonna buy a horse, that you would ask those questions. But she's been so super supportive with the whole thing, and like she notices after I come back from being out at the ranch, she can tell that it's something that really truly helps me, as opposed to the weeks are the days that I can't go out there. So every second week we have her 5-year-old son. Those weeks, it's a little bit harder for me to go out there because I need to be here to kind of watch him, so she doesn't get driven crazy by this 5-year-old when she's trying to work at home.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, she can tell the weeks that I go out there and the weeks that I don't, and I can tell with my sleep and my overall attitude. So now that I've got this horse, we're gonna have to figure out a bit of a schedule. I don't know if maybe when he's here, I just go out later on in the afternoon when she's done work, or even take him with me, because he seems like he's super interested in wanting to learn how to ride and all this stuff. So I mean, that's awesome. I would love to be able to do that and get him involved too. And but yeah, I mean, they are super animals, and I would definitely recommend to even people that have never been around a horse to seek out. And there's tons of these ranches online that you can find in your area that have like the adaptive riding or the therapy sessions and whatnot. And I would say, like, go do it. Try it, and you're gonna love it.
So now we're at present day. Your boys are 17. You're with a new lady. You got yourself a horse. Sounds like you're doing pretty good.
I am. You know, I still do have one of those days where, you know, maybe it takes me a little bit more to kind of get going and whatnot. But I mean, besides that, I'm super happy that I've been able to find Jackie, because she is such a true support person. I mean, she, like, when we first met, you know, she actually researched PTSD because like she didn't really come across it or anything like that. And, you know, she'd ask me questions about what's going on with me, and, you know, compare stuff and just get that knowledge. And she knows that if I'm not having a good day, well, then she will do what she needs to do to make it better, or
just leave you alone.
Yeah, and sometimes that's all I need, is just to be left alone for, you know, half a day or an hour or whatever, right? Like, it's, yeah. I'm truly blessed to have her in my life for that. And yeah, it just makes the whole situation seem like it's something that you can win now, as opposed to always feeling like you might be losing all the time, right? And it helps that, you know, we've got so many things in common, and it also helps that we've got lots of things that aren't in common, right? And yeah, to be able to have her around, I mean, I wish she could have came into the picture way sooner than she did, but I mean, at that time, I guess the stars weren't aligned, but now she's here, and I'm very thankful for it, that's for sure.
Thank you very much, Dan. I'm so happy to know you're doing well. And yeah, it was just so great talking to you. We actually talked for another hour after the interview. We haven't talked in a few years, but we got one of those relationships where you can do that and you can just pick right up where you left off. And yeah, it was just really, really great talking to you again, Dan. I hope to see you in person again sometime soon, once, you know, traveling and all that crap goes back to normal. As for next week, I speak to Kara Fletcher. She has come out with a study and done some research on the language we use when speaking about addiction. Some of the words have a very negative connotation to them, and so the language we use sometimes perpetuates the stigma and promotes guilt and shame when talking about people in recovery. Even the word recovery, relapse, addict, junkie, clean, dirty, stuff like that. It's really great study. It's very interesting. So I really look forward to everyone listening to that, because I think it would be a nice idea to maybe change the stigma when it comes to addiction, and that really starts with the language we use. So anyway, so listen to that next week. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe, rate, and review however you are listening to this podcast. It only takes a moment, and it really helps the show out with getting noticed. This episode has been sponsored by Penny University Bookstore, 3104 13th Avenue. Call 639-571-2186 and check out their online bookstore at pennyu.ca. And Regina Plumbing and Heating. Call 306-585-2000 for all your plumbing, heating, and cooling needs. If you are having a mental health crisis, please call the Canadian Crisis number at 1-833-456-4566. In Saskatchewan, the mobile crisis team in Prince Albert is 306-764-1011. In Regina, it's 306-525-5333, and in Saskatoon, it's 306-933-6200. Don't forget to check out my children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. Sometimes Daddy Cries is told through the eyes of a boy whose father suffers from depression. He sees his dad get sad, rest, and even go to the hospital, all while comparing his father's depression to a physical ailment. Available on Amazon.ca. I'll see you next time. This is Todd Redebaum saying, make your beds and take your meds. Bye.